already have 2 microphones. I just thought I'd go for the third one. Right, anyway, so propaganda and hypnosis. Well, I've been a professional hypnotist for about 30 years. So I've been doing it a long time. And I started off hypnotising people at school when I was about 11 or 12 really badly, when I got one of these little hypno discs and a 2-page induction out of a joke book, the Emsley joke book. And it promised me that I could chat up women and I could control people at my will. It never quite worked out that way, and I did get into some trouble trying it though. And then, as I grew older, I ended up going to art college, and for a wee while I worked in advertising, and I would visualise all the storyboards for TV commercials and things like that. Before I eventually got into stage hypnosis, I trained with a stage hypnotist, and I became a professional stage hypnotist in the early 90s. So you could say I've spent most of my life trying to work out how to get people to do things. And that's basically my skill. And when the COVID kicked off way back in 2020, the first thing that really struck me was, right from the beginning, the red flags went up, because what actually happened was I could see it unfold in front of me, that the government was using almost identical tactics and techniques that I would use on the stage every Saturday night in places like the Odeon. And so the first week or two, it was really lonely because I was the only one that was kind of in it, if you understand what I mean. And I remember going into Asda, and I remember seeing people fighting over toilet rolls. And for me, it was like I was walking about with a big grin on my face because I was seeing the biggest hypnosis show in the world unfold before me. And I was mesmerised by it myself, and I was amazed by it. But I was the only person that I knew who was in this position. I was even attacked with a couple of friends of mine who thought I was laughing at people's misery, but in actual fact I was trying to explain to them, but they really didn't seem to understand. And the first clue that kicked off right away was when Boris came on the television and he said that everybody in the land is going to lose somebody close to them. That's a red flag, because if this was a crisis that they were safely wanting to guide us through, the last thing they would be doing would be winding us up. They would be winding us down and keeping us calm. And that was a red flag. And from that moment forward, I knew that something was up. Okay. Now, before we go on to it, the slides and get into it, the presentation that I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to show you some of the 2 or 3 examples of what I did on the stage, and I'm going to explain the hypnotic phenomena behind it, and I'm going to show you how the government used that hypnotic phenomena in the hope that it gives you a deeper understanding of how this works, because this works right across the board every single day in every area of life, even before the COVID. When I was doing the stage hypnosis way back then, one of the things that really amazed me about stage hypnosis was if you take a group of people through a simple process, structure your language in a certain way, and take people through a simple ritual, you can have a profound impact upon their perceptions. You can make them see things that are not there. You can make them not be able to see things that are there. You can remove all their inhibitions, and you can have them behaving in all kinds of ways that they wouldn't normally do. And the biggest thing that even to this day still kind of gets me is that 90% of the audience who got up on stage with me after 2 hours on stage couldn't remember a single thing. They had complete amnesia for the whole experience. And so when I actually left stage hypnosis, I actually started to notice the same patterns that were happening every single day in our day-to-day daily interactions, and the words that we use and the rituals that we go through daily, and how we structure and sequence our communications has a profound impact upon us and the people around us. And so I ended up going and working with businesses. So I worked with a number of businesses. I worked with, my first client was a national Mercedes-Benz dealership, and I helped them break sales records in just 2 days training. I worked with charities like Bernardo's, where I helped them move a £240,000 corporate donation to a £1 million commitment in a single meeting. And then I went on to work with lots and lots and lots of companies after that. Long story, but I gave all that stuff up. But when the COVID stuff kicked up and I seen what was happening, I put a live 90-minute programmed together and put up live, and it went viral. And so what happened was I got a couple of the big YouTubers ran with it and copied it, and then a couple other YouTubers ran with it, and I reckon it's had over 200,000 hits. And then from then, that moment in time, I got people from all over the world asking me to help them with their anxiety and worried about their families, and I had people from all over the world. I had a Hollywood celebrity, right down to I had a couple of athletes, to single mothers in Melbourne who were worried to take their kids. And so during that period, and since then, I've always had a therapy practice, but I've developed some techniques that have helped a lot of people. And at the end of this presentation, I'm hoping that we can share some of that here too, right? So anyway, when you think about hypnosis, I think about hypnosis slightly differently to most hypnotists. Before I go into it, it might be a good time to think about what science is saying now about the world and reality. And what we're basically saying is that nothing's solid. We actually live in a sea of energy. And the seats that you're sitting on right now, they appear to be solid, but in actual fact, they're just made up of spinning particles. There's nothing solid about it. And what creates the solidity is the data that you're receiving through your five senses, and you are constructing that in your mind. So your reality right now is you are looking at me, you think that's an external world, but you're creating that reality in your mind. So if you think about all the outside world events, what's actually happening is you're taking all that data through your five senses, and you're creating that experience, whether it's a joyful experience, a blissful experience, or an anxious, fearful experience. It's actually created inside your head. It's got nothing to do with the outside world. So that's the first thing, right? So for example, so we're actually living in a sea energy, and we're generating and we're creating our own reality. Now, as a hypnotist, and most stage hypnotists don't actually think like this way. This is the way I think, right? I think that we're always in a trance, 24/7. We cannot not be in a trance of some kind. And all a trance really is what I call one unit of subjective configuration. And what I mean by that is, depending on how your mind is configured will depend upon how you perceive the world. And that's why when you work with entrepreneurs, some entrepreneurs see nothing but opportunities everywhere, where the vast population see nothing but obstacles. Their mind is configured to see things differently. They are perceiving a different reality. So the way that everyday trance works, if you look at the diagram up there, so if you look at the middle line, that represents the divide between the inner world and the outer world, right? And the outer world's at the top, right? And we have five senses, but just for tonight, we're only going to talk about the main three. We have the ability to visualize and see, right? We can see the external world, but we can also close our eyes and see and visualize and imagine things inside us, right? So, for example, right now, you're looking up here and you can actually see me, right? If I asked everybody to close your eyes and imagine what I look like, you could close your eyes and imagine what I would look like. You could turn my top into a green top. You could change the way I look inside your mind. Then you could open up your eyes and look at me again, and then you could see me, and you could imagine I have a bushy beard. You could imagine I have a cowboy hat on my head, right? You could imagine I'm standing in front of your front door that's behind you, which might be a scary thought for quite a few of you. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can visualize internally and externally, and you can project both constructs in and out. It's the same with auditory, right? You can hear my voice. You can close your eyes right now, and you could speed my voice up, or you could slow it down, or you could open your eyes. You could hear me talk. You could imagine that there's a soundtrack and music going on in the background. And the same with touch and feelings as well, right? You can touch solid tables. You have emotional feelings, which we'll go into a little bit further down the line. You can stroke a dog right now. In your imagination, you can remember what it's like to stroke a dog. You can imagine what it's like to shave a dog and stroke a shaved dog. You can do all these things inside your mind, right? And what's happening at any moment in time is that I'm speaking to you right now. In order for you to process what I'm saying and make sense of it, what you have to do is you have to go internally inside. And you have to sort of cross-reference everything I'm saying to make sense of it, and you come back out again, right? So what's happening at any period of time? You're looking at me, you're going inside, you're digging up stuff from inside, from your past experiences, and you're projecting it outside. So what you're actually seeing here tonight isn't me directly. It's a construct, you're projecting it back out. So everybody who's sitting here right now is coming from a different reality, and that's a really important thing you have to understand, is that everybody is genetically different, everybody has a complete different personal history, a whole set of experiences. Everybody in this room is coming from a different reality, and the reality that you are experiencing and you think is collective, it's generated in your mind. So everybody's coming from a different point of view, and that's really important when we get to the subject later on about removing conflict from every situation, right? So that's the idea and the notion of everyday trance. Right, I wonder if it's going to spook me out or not. Oh, right, okay, and I'll press this one again, I believe. Not the middle one, not the middle one, it explodes, I've been told. Right, so I'm just going to play this for a minute. This was my very first show in Melbourne in the early 90s. So this was the Odeon, very first stage show I did in Odeon. Right, okay, so that's what's called a rapid induction in the hypnosis industry, right? And it looks like I'm really powerful, I just go up and touch people up. Touch people up.
Freudian slip
I've let my secret out. I got away with it, I kept it in the newspapers all these years, shit, no. Right, okay, so when I'm not touching people up, what this appears to the audience is that the hypnotist has this huge supreme power over people, and all he has to do is touch them up or touch them on the forehead, and they go into a deep unconscious state. But the process starts long before the show. It starts about 6 weeks before the show, and what we do is we put posters up. So I had these big posters with big red eyes, right scary eyes, and what we would do is I'd have a few of my mates, and we used to go about in the old days when fly posting was easy to do in Edinburgh, and we'd go to every venue, every area that we could stick something on, we would stick it on. So everywhere you went in Edinburgh, you'd see my face. I know it's a horrible thought, but that's exactly how it was. And I remember we had gangs as well in Glasgow who used to come through for big money, doing it for the big celebrities and plays and stuff like that. And I got told if you get caught, they'll break your legs. But what happened was we timed it to sort of stand and wait behind there, just put their posters up, and we even used their pace to stick ours up. So that was the first part, is we would absolutely splatter the place with these posters. And the reason we were doing that is we were already getting people excited. We were actually raising their level of arousal, and we were starting to create this, this state of excitement, of this hypnotist that's coming. And then we put adverts in, and then on the actual night, again, the theatre was covered with these posters. And then what would happen was I was meant to go in at midnight, but of course I never went on at midnight. I'd maybe sometimes go in at 15:15, 20 past, sometimes 25 past. And so people were getting really, really wondering what was happening. And the reason that I'm doing this is I'm actually removing any frameworks that people hold on to the reality with. I'm taking them to a place that they've never been before. And so I was then announced that the hypnotist is now here, so Shrink, that was my name, he's coming on. And then what we would do, instead of me coming on, we'd plunge the whole theatre into total darkness. So when you're looking at the side of you, you couldn't actually see the person next to you, it was that bad. And you could actually hear the nervous giggling in the audience. And what's happening by this time, of course, the emotions are being driven up and driven up and driven up. They've been taken into this high state of fear and excitement. And I'll tell you a wee moment why we do that. And then what happens is when we get them to a sort of high state of excitement, they start playing the creepy music, and then the strobe lights came on, and I think I played Simply the Best before I walked on. So we've got all this loud music, and then I would walk on. But by the time I've walked on, half of them are hypnotised already, and it's been a process that's been primed that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks to get to this stage. And then what happens is I come on stage and I get everybody to take part in a simple ritual. I get everybody to put their hands together like this. I then suggest that I'm going to count from 1 to 10. As the numbers get higher, you find your hands become tighter and tighter. When I reach 10, your hands will be stuck together and you can't pull them apart. And a large percentage of the audience could not pull their hands apart, and they were the ones that you would get up on stage, and that would take me to that part there. right? So that's how it's done there. Now, how does that relate to the propaganda with the government? Well, if you think about it, the first thing that Boris did, he told everybody that they were going to lose somebody close to them. So he put everybody nationally into a higher state of fear or excitement. That was the first thing, right? And then we were primed for weeks about the footage, which I think turned out to be a footage from a science fiction movie in China, showing all the people falling down in the streets. So we were getting told that this was happening, so they were running all these images through their minds, so we were getting primed that this thing was coming. And then what Boris did, he did almost identical things to me. He was meant to turn up at certain times live on the telly to make important announcements, and he wouldn't turn up. All the sort of things, the confusion techniques that I was using was actually used by the government back then. And the reason that confusion is so powerful is that if you get somebody into a state of confusion and then you offer them a way out of that confusion, they'll grab it. If you think about, for example, somebody that's overboard, right, and they're sort of like drowning, if you throw him a lifeline, he'll grab onto that and he'll pull himself onto the boat. He doesn't care what's on that boat. He doesn't care what's going to happen. He'll just grab it. And that's what this whole confusion thing was. It was all about breaking away the normal framework which we hang our reality on, make us confused, and then give us a way out. And so we would take it. So that was kind of identical. If you also notice as well, getting people to line up like that, it's very similar to social distancing. The reason why we had social distancing, it was another physical ritual, because the actual so-called virus itself, it's not very theatrical on its own. You can't see, it's invisible. So we had to make it theatrical, and we had to keep the fear going. And so the whole idea of having to wear masks outside, the posh futuristic voices coming over the tannoids, and the rituals that we were told to do, it was all part of making a theatrical show to a certain extent, to create the illusion that this was a real dangerous thing. And I'm going to get onto the hypnotic triggers and anchors in a moment about that. So as you can see, that a lot of the stuff that the government used was almost identical to what I was using. Right, so, God. Right, so yeah, emotions. So this is the best place to talk about emotions, right? So why are emotions important? Well, here is the thing, right? Whenever you get somebody into a high peak emotional state, they become really suggestible. They become pliable, right? And so the whole idea, from a hypnotist's point of view, I wanted to get people into a high emotional state, because I knew once I got them into a high emotional state, we're suggestible. Then I could compound suggestions and rituals into their heads really fast, get them to a point where they're conditioned. And for a large, not a large, but for a percentage of the audience who respond to this, I could do almost anything I wanted with them, and I'll show you that in some of the clips in a minute. And so emotions are really important. But the other thing that a lot of people don't know about emotions, whenever you're in a peak emotional state, either positive or negative, what's happening outside of yourself becomes a trigger for that state. Either something you see, hear or touch, or a combination of these three things becomes a trigger for that state. So for example, if you can imagine driving in your car and the radio goes on and you hear a song that goes back to your teenage years when you were running about with your first love and that kind of stuff, the same feelings and the memories and the emotions come triggering back, because that's become a trigger, because you were in that emotional state when you were listening to that music. Another example would be being at a funeral and losing somebody close to you. You would be in a peak emotional state, but it'd be a really negative one. If somebody came up to you and says, "Look, Brian, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss," and tapped you on the shoulder, but they only have to do that 2 or 3 times, and now you've set up a trigger for that emotional state in your shoulder. And about 2 years later, you could be totally over the event, and you could be at a party having a great time, having a laugh, and somebody could come and say, "I've not seen you for ages, how are you doing?" Touch you in the same spot, and all of a sudden you feel like crying and you don't know why. Now, that's probably happened to you when you think about it now. How many times have you got up in the morning on the way to your work, and you feel great, but you don't know why, but for some reason something comes over and you don't feel so great? It's because we're constantly setting these triggers up in the environment all the time. Now, when you're in this emotional state of fear, not only are you more suggestible, when you go out and you're in this state of fear, all these visual rituals, standing in the queue, the voice, the masks, people that you see, then become a trigger for that emotional state. So whenever you go outside and you try and go about your normal daily business, everywhere you're going, that state's been triggered and you're going back into this emotional state, which is just another word for trance as far as I'm concerned, right? So all the beliefs and all the images attached to that come up into your mind. And the thing about emotions is they act as lenses. And what I mean by that is your reality is perceived through the lens of an emotion. So if you've ever been depressed or anything like that for a period, right, when you look through the lens of a depression, everything looks dark and it looks worthless. And when things look dark and worthless, then there's no point in moving forward because you can't see any opportunities, right? So what these triggers did outside was they maintained and compounded and kept this mass trance going for as long as possible. And that's how the basic, the basic propaganda was created. That's how the mass hypnosis was created, and that's how it was held in place. Just stop this for a minute, right? So this was the 21st I did, and it was I did it also as a warm-up because I hadn't done any shows for a few years, and I was doing the Virgin Picture House in Edinburgh Festival about 2 months later after that, so I wanted to do it. So the joke I make about this is the fact that the virus, the mental virus that came from China actually started off in Scotland way back in 2010, and this is it here.
And the harder you try to speak, the more frustrated you'll become, and it'll just be real bad Chinese. 1, 2, 3, wait away. Can't help yourself, you just start going, you can't stop talking. You say exactly what's in your mind in Chinese. She's making it worse than she's laughing at you.
I've got his bum stuck to the chair. It's really important you do that when you're getting somebody angry for safety reasons. But it's really an important thing as well, which I'll go over when we come through this clip.
You won't be wide awake and it's really going to burn your bum. 1, 2, 3, wide awake! What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Oh! Fucking fucking hell. What about you? Come here. What's wrong? What? What's wrong? Fucking ass! Go. Okay. Do you know your feet are on fire? Your feet are on fire. Look, they're on fire. Look at them. That's okay. They're cool. Come here. You can't come away with it. Come over here. Did you realise your willy's on fire now?
He gave birth to a baby here. He's got one of these throat dolls. He doesn't trust me with his baby.
Can I really pass this bit in you now? It's pissing all over you and shit all over you and everything. Can I get a shot of your baby? Can I get a shot? Why not? Don't you trust me? Give me a shot of your baby. Come on, give me a shot. Give me a shot. Give me a shot. I just... Shot your baby. Can I really shot your baby? Okay. Stop putting your nipples, it's even sore. Can I get a shot? When I count to 3, you'll trust me and you'll give me a shot. 1, 2, 3, you trust me, don't you? Can I get a shot? Oh. Fucking reject.
I'll just stop that there now. There's a whole lot there. I'll put it online if you want to see it, but it's time, right? Now, there's a couple of really important things there that I want to get over from that one there, right? First thing is, look how easy it is for me to get people wound up into an emotional state, how angry it is, right? Second thing is, okay, it's just for fun. We can even make people think that they speak in a Chinese language. But another important thing to take from that clip is that I can actually induce physical pain. But not only that, I can actually stick people to chairs physically so they can't get out of it. Now, if you think about the propaganda, don't leave home, stay at home, save lives, save the NHS. Now, I heard about people that never left their, and think about what's happening now with the 15-minute cities and stuff like that, right? I heard about people that had never left their house or left the area for weeks and weeks and weeks. Were too frightened, they couldn't physically do it. So when you're in this peak emotional state of fear and you're getting all this propaganda and the posters and all the different things, these messages are being compounded into the minds of these people. And what they're doing is they're basically having the same effects that I'm showing you here, right here. This is a laugh, right? But it's the exact same process that they actually used. You can actually physically stop somebody getting out of a chair. You can physically give them pain. That's what's worth, that's the main thing from that one to take. And also, if you're going to throw somebody's baby away, you have to be fast. That's the other thing to do. Is that working? That's it. It's fine. You're the best sheep I've ever had, actually. The voices are just perfect.
Oh, guys, come on, get out, you fucking idiots. Would you go home? Nah, there was a dog. Get out, fucking stupid. And if you get another one, Paul, you can see this other one. Give another one a shot. Paul, give another one a shot. Go on. Is that good, Paul? Yeah.
He was. Thank you, actually. Thank you, did it for a job now.
Keep your pants on, Paul. You want to get your pants on.
Oh, yeah.
You want to take your pants off, Paul.
Right, I'll stop that one. Right, now, oops. Sorry, Paul. His name is Paul, I remember. So, anyway. So I used to do this for a living. These people used to pay me a lot of money. I miss it. I wish I could do it now. I'd probably get arrested now for doing some of these things with the hate police. So anyway, so the thing to take from this clip, right, is the first clip I use direct suggestion, so I can tell people what to do and I can wind them up. As you can see, Paul was his name, the volunteer on here. When I actually asked him, would you do this? And he thought, not a chance, look at these idiots. But I only had to make a noise, and that was the key, that was the trigger. And he went into trance right away. He thought he was the world's biggest sheep shagger, apparently. And that's when he jumped on the back of the guy, and that's how he did it. Right, now, it might not be the classiest show, but it's a great example to the extremes and what you can do with people, right? So, suggestion and noises can trigger it. In fact, you can almost set up any trigger. So we'll go on to the next one. Maybe. We'll go on to the next one.
Are you hypnotising us now?
I guess I am. I'm priming you for what's coming next. They've just woke up and realised what they're doing. That's why I put them. I stripped them again and put them back in. So. Now, the thing to take from that one, apart from never volunteering about a showing, but the thing to take from that is that we can give direct suggestions, we can give noises, or we can get people to go in and out of trance with music. So basically you can set these triggers up with just about anything, and that's what they were doing externally outside with the COVID propaganda. Well, right, and so let's look at some of the posters, right? Now, if you look at that, I told you earlier on that we take people through simple rituals, and rituals can actually open up doorways to different states of consciousness, right? And this was hands, face, space. That was a ritual, right? That was a ritual that triggered off or kept the thing going, or it was like a doorway that entered into the trance, if you like. So we must keep protecting each other, and also copywriters use this in advertising quite a lot. It's called the power of three. And nobody knows why, but the power of three sticks in your mind. Three blind mice, 3 musketeers, 1, twice, 3 times a lady. In fact, now that I've started it off, you could spend all night running all that through your head, and all this stuff's been hammered into your head through the power of three, beginning, middle, end. And so it's a well-known thing that copywriters do. And we'll just click through a few of them and get onto the stuff, right? So there's another one, stay home, save lives. Now, we were speaking earlier on that these people are in a high state of emotion, so they're really suggestible, right? There's the suggestions, stay home, protect the NHS, save lives, right? You'll also notice that the NHS is a highly emotionally charged logo because politicians have been telling us for years we must save the NHS. Vote for us, we're the ones that are going to protect this, like NHS that we must have at all times. So all that emotion's been already charged into that logo. So they're using that as well. And I'm suspecting now that the NHS has been used that way to put fear into us all those years, and that nobody really intended to save it. It was just another tool to have us in a state of fear. Also, if you notice as well in this one, the colours are red, yellow. These are the colours that we usually associate with danger and emergency. So that's what they were trying to do here, right? And there's another one, stay home this bank holiday weekend, don't put your friends and family at danger, stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. Now, I remember when I was learning how to do stage hypnosis, right, my mentor told me something, and I kind of like know that this is for a fact because I've done so many shows, right, but a lot of stage hypnotists will tell you, and they really believe it, and you do it on stage, you say, look, if you come up here, you won't do anything that goes against your personal values, so you won't do anything that you really don't want to do, right? And most stage hypnotists will say that and they believe it, but I know that's not true because you can twist people's values. And my mentor told me, he says, if you want to twist somebody's values, just imagine, get somebody into a trance, get them worked up and tell them that there's a big snake on top of your mother's head sitting there, give him a sword and tell him to cut that snake in two. And he'll be so wound up, he will just do it. And that's what I believe was happening with this when they started to use the elderly in that way, weaponize them. And what they were doing is they were taking people who were normally kind and considerate and professional, and they were twisting their values. So they were twisting their values and rather than saving the elderly, they were actually killing them or causing them severe suffering. And that's how they did it. They twisted. And so that's why if there are still, because I think most people are waking up now, but if there are still people on the side that you know who are still into this, you have to understand the reality that they're coming from is a different reality that you're coming from, and their values have been twisted, and everything they did, their intentions were honourable. So you've got to understand that. And there's another example. Act like you've got to act like you're a sheepshagger. A direct suggestion. Stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. And if you remember all the posters that we've seen back then, it was over and over and over. Power of three, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives, over and over and over. And that's how they conditioned us. And that's my poster I was using. And notice the similarities in the colour scheme. Not all hypnotists had that kind of image. Some of them like to be kind of like holiday camp, friendly people with pink and golden jackets. I went in for this maniac god who wanted to scare the crap out of everybody. Because it kind of suited my personality, I thought. And so you can see that the colour scheme's very similar. So, emotion, belief, convictions. What do I mean by that? This is, if you like, this is the algorithm that they used, right? Whenever you are out and you're getting some kind of data or stimulus from the outside world, if there is an emotion attached to it, right? And if that emotion is attached to it long enough, whatever you're being told will become a belief. Once it becomes a belief, you start to filter any evidence that doesn't support that belief out, right? So we're going into a state of fear. They're prolonging that state of fear. They're telling us that all these people are dying. They're forming beliefs, which are basically filters, right? If that goes on long enough, that belief turns into a conviction. And what I mean by a conviction is like a belief, but it works in a sandbox. And once you get into that sandbox, it doesn't matter what you do, you cannot change that belief. And that's what cognitive dissonance is about. That's why when you were putting data and logic in front of these people, and you were getting frustrated with them, they couldn't see it, because that belief now is completely encased in it. And you've seen it in things like religion and politics. You've seen people who are fanatical in one of these areas, and it doesn't matter how much you try and convince them, it doesn't matter how much evidence, they just can't take it in. It's because they've been taken through this process to conviction, right? But the other thing you've got to understand as well is, so have you. So then I get smug, right? There might be things that they see that we can't see, because you're either on one side or the other, and that's the clue to breaking free, is to sort of step back and not to participate, become an observer, which we're going to go into later on. Right, that's my mother. It's a bit emotional. My mum went into care 5 days before the lockdown, and I promised her that I'd never leave her, and I couldn't get in to see her for a year. When we did get into the summer, that's how we got to see her. We got to see her behind a fence. And the thing that got me back then was there was a lot of stuff in the news about the FEMA camps, and how the headlines were about, shall we lock up the unvaccinated, right? And what I witnessed during that time was that it is possible to take people and twist their values so much, people who are normally caring and professional, and turn them into jailers. And I realised that's how that's happened all over the world in these different tyrannical countries. And I've seen it happen on small scale in front of me right there and then. So I took that photograph, and I kept kind of calm at that point. And then we managed to get an inside visit. I think we got one visit in October, then they shut all down again. And I also remember I got in to see my mum, and she was looking terrified. There was a table there, I was all gowned up with this shit, and I couldn't go beyond this table. And half an hour went really fast. They came for my mother. I could see the fear in her eyes, and one took her with one Oxter, and the other one lifted her up the other one, and carried her away while she cried her eyes out, just for a cuddle. And so, at that moment in time, I'd seen, in my mind, I'd seen the full process being taken from a place where we've got ordinary, caring people and twisting them so much that they could become jailers. And like many people at that time, I was kind of really frightened about the vaccine passports, and I thought that could happen until, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I do remember that I started to work it out, probably from some YouTube video, the actual figures. I think there was 5 million of us at that time, which then went up to 12 million in the second vaccination, then it went up to 20 in the third. That it was physically impossible to have these camps. And I remember at the time they used one camp as an example to scare everybody. It was in Australia, and it was really convincing. But again, when you think about it, it would have been impossible to build all these camps. So what that was, it was just another illusion to keep us in a state of fear. Hypnotic pendulums, right? So what's a hypnotic pendulum? Why is it important? Well, a hypnotic pendulum is the unconscious structures that allow for the ability to move large amounts of people. Right, so hypnotic pendulums are the unconscious structures that keep us bound together and allow the authorities higher up to be able to control the masses and move us together as one, right? So when we are born, from the day we are born, we are taught and trained to obey the authorities. We go to school, we're told to obey the will of others, we're told to serve our country, we then get a job, we're given all the stuff that we're told to do at work. And so we're becoming primed to serve a group or organisation. So another few examples would be football teams, churches, religion, all that kind of stuff. So we're actually primed to do that from an early stage, right? And as these structures emerge and develop, when a group of people merge and think the same way, they're joined by others, and the structure grows and it gets bigger, and its ability and its strength to force its members to follow the rules eventually amasses to the point where they can gain control over society. And that's basically how a pendulum is started. Now, this is a pendulum, by the way. This group is a pendulum, right? And when a group of people get together, united in a common goal, and think exactly the same way, it creates a pendulum. And that pendulum is expressed materialistically by buildings, machinery, equipment, etc. And on an energetic level, when people get together and think the same way, with identical thought parameters, then that thought energy unites as a single current, and it takes a life of its own, and it just moves right through and gets bigger and bigger like a snowball. And that's the idea of a pendulum. A couple of examples of some simple pendulums would be, think about a football match when you do the Mexican wave. They all get up, they all stand, right? And rock concerts, the same thing. They all put their whatever they do together. And the thing is, when you're actually on your own and you're isolated, right, you're operating from your own past experiences, your instincts and all that kind of stuff, right? But when you're in a group of people, you're no longer doing that. It's like an outside program steps in and you lose that autonomy. And so even on our side, it was a pendulum. And the thing about pendulums is when you become part of that pendulum, either it's, if we're going to talk about COVID, either it's what I call the maskers or now I call the dystopians. Whatever side you're on, when you're part of that pendulum, right, you do not have access to your conscious or rational thoughts, right? And then you go, if it's on this side here, you want to share posts, you want to share information, and you think it's coming from you, but they're not even your thoughts. They're the thoughts of the pendulum. Also, if you look at digital and social media right now, the pendulum rule has achieved total domination. At every step, the unconscious mind now is exposed to efficient stereotyping program of behaviour and thinking. And so, even if you're on this side, you'll find that all your friends tend to think like you. And then you share posts and we share posts, and the pendulum just gets kind of stronger and stronger. Now, pendulums feed off energy, an energy frequency of fear mostly. And so, if you think about what's happened, right, that state of fear was induced and it set off this pendulum. And the way pendulums work is they draw the opposites together, and it's a natural process. And what happens is the pendulums bring opposites together and they clash off each other. And the idea is eventually it creates balance, it creates a store of balance, because nature doesn't like this imbalance energetically. And so what's happening, I believe, is a lot of this stuff in COVID will cancel itself out. And I think the elites know this, right? I don't think they believe they're going to get this full dystopia, but they're going to take as much as they can on the way to it. And the evidence for me that I found was when I looked at the vaccinations, right, and the vaccination passports were coming and the lockdowns looked like they were never going to cease, right? There was only 5 million of us. And then what happened was, I've got a friend who owns a pigeon shop, right, working class pigeon shop. That's where I come from, a working class area. And I could gauge the temperature of what was happening throughout that whole period because the shop was open, right? And at the beginning, everybody was getting their vaccinations, and of course, I'm telling them like an idiot, and I was a local joke and all that kind of stuff. It's different now, but I was back then, and I started to notice that the second vaccination, I could see them getting kind of like, I'm not second vaccination, I'm not getting a second vaccination. By the time the third vaccination came in, hardly anybody was getting it, right? So I looked up the stats, and I noticed after the first vaccination, the people refusing the second one went up to 12 million. And then by the time it came to the third one, it had actually went up to 20 million. So the trajectory was going against them. They knew that they had to step back and they couldn't push it any further. And so the vaccination passport at that point was dropped and the lockdowns came up. There was no explanation for it, if you remember it. And I even remember saying to a few people back then that this is going to end soon, because I could see it ending. I could see it ending in the shop. And it did. It ended a couple of months after I said it. I think it was October I said it, and I think it ended in February the year after it. So pendulums feed off the frequency of fear. So the whole idea, the whole structure of a pendulum, right, is what a pendulum will do is it feeds off conflict, right? And so if you see the pendulum as having two extreme ends, on one end you've got the maskers, on another end you've got the dystopians, right? And we're both being clashed against each other, but we're both in the same state of fear. And we're both feeding the pendulum, right? So people used to look at me as if I was mad when they claimed they were awake inside, and I told them, you're not awake, you're actually hypnotized. You're in the same state as the other person. You're what I call a non-mirror image reverse. And for example, I remember, and what a non-mirror image reverse is, one example would be, I remember at the time, I knew a lot of people who were really upset because they couldn't get in to see family members because they weren't vaccinated, so they weren't welcome. But then on the other side, I had people who weren't welcoming people because they had been vaccinated and they were frightened of the shedding. It was at the extreme ends, it was a non-mirror image reverse. And it's like a geometric shape that these pendulums take, take shape on, right? So that's the pendulums, and we'll just move on to... So here's an example of a pendulum. It was set up in an office experiment.
To answer that question, we set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beats, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone and nobody is watching her, except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do? She's now conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Have a seat and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Thanks so much.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do? We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting patients arrived. And slowly but surely, what began as a random rule for this woman has now become the social norm for everyone in this waiting room. Here to explain what's going on.
So that just shows you how easy it is to start up a pendulum. And if you think about all the celebrities and the politicians getting up there, it was to set off a pendulum. That's all it was. And also, going back to the emotions for a minute, if you think about all the words, like, you know, we're obviously a bunch of TERFs, fascists and Nazis in here, but these words are like triggers. They're basically highly emotional triggers, and the people that use them, they have had all this kind of fear and imagery put into their minds. And whenever they see us as a fascist or a TERF or whatever they want to call us, they don't see us. They actually project this imaginary fear that's been created in their minds with a conditioning like that, because they want to be part of their own group, and they're terrified of not complying, or they're going to be a TERF, they're going to be a fascist or a Nazi. And that's how it's done, and that's how easy it's done. That's the sad thing. That's how easy it's done. All right. What's next? Oh, the final solution. Where have I heard that before? I just thought that would be a really appropriate way to end this, since we're in a room full of fascists, Nazis and TERFs. Right, so what's the final solution? I did take a sort of notes because I haven't even worked it out yet. I'm sure there is a final solution somewhere. Right. Oh, right, okay. The ultimate in non-compliance is to become fearless. That's the solution. That's how we break the trance. And anyone who turns their back on the outside world has an advantage in all areas of life, right? And so the idea behind that is when you turn your back on all this crap that's happening through the media and all this stuff that's happening like that, then you basically cut off the data that you're using to create your experience, and you start to create your own experience. So the thing is, there's another principle called the mirror principle, and the whole idea about the mirror principle is that everything that you experience right now is a mirror of what's going on inside you, right? So if you want to change your reality, then you change the image, not the reflection. And so you turn your back on the world and then start to really work hard at curating your own reality. In other words, you decide the data that goes into your system, and you decide how you're going to interpret it, then you can change reality. And I believe personally, it might not be your belief, if everybody did that, then this agenda would be finished in a week. But the other thing is, when you're in this state of fear, and when you're taking part in this illusion, if you like, this mass illusion, no matter which side you're on, then you're helping them, because so many people that I've seen that are friends of mine, and I keep telling them and they didn't listen to me, they're living in this dystopian potential nightmare 24/7. So if you're doing that, they've won, because that's what they want. They want to be inside your heads. They want to have you in a low frequency, right? Because they don't want you to understand that you're more powerful than you can ever imagine, and that no matter the restrictions that they try and put on us, we are able to manifest our own realities. And I remember once I officially came out of the lockdowns, the mental lockdowns, after the first lockdown, and I decided to be positive again, right? And I decided to sit down and ignore it all, and I decided to set goals. I got back into the gym, I lost 2 stone, I've got a bit of a six-pack now, not bad for 61. I did all these things, right? And the minute I actually shifted my focus, I remember I sent away for it. It's a really good book if you want to get it. It's called Trance by Vidam Zeeland. He's a quantum physicist, and a lot of the pendulum stuff I got from him. So I remember I went down to R.S. McCall's in Portobello to pick it up. It was a beautiful sunny day in Portobello, and I also remember I came out and I thought, I'll just open it here and sit on the bench in Portobello High Street, and opened up the book. And I remember there's this little cafe right next to me, a couple of feet up. And there was an old gentleman and a lady there who turned out to be a Brazilian lady. And right next to them there was a traffic light, and this bus pulled up. And all of a sudden she just turned up the radio, and this Brazilian music belted out all the way down Portobello. And I always remember almost the whole of the top level of the bus go up and danced with this Brazilian woman. And in the middle of all this fucking misery and all this shit show that was going on, this was sort of surreal. And the sun was shining, I had my book, I was seeing this. And this maybe went on for about 2 minutes. Then the bus went away, everybody just went back to normal, they turned the music down, and everything went back to normal. And the funny thing is since that moment and I've shifted my mind, I go through moments like this quite a lot. In fact, when you shift your mind, you actually realise there's a lot of good in the world, there's a lot of stuff that you're missing. And there's only 2 things that are certain in life, right? There's only 2 things you get, time and energy. Where are you putting your time and energy in? Because life is so temporary. I was at a school reunion just a couple of weeks ago, right? Haven't seen them for 40 years. And I had these complete strangers come up to me saying, "How are you doing, Brian?" And I was going, "Who the fuck is this?" And then the connections would come back again, and I think, it's you, Scott, it's you, whoever. And then the connections were there. It was almost like we hadn't seen each other in a few months. And then at the end of the night, I stood in the corner and I watched everybody in a circle shaking hands. And I had mixed feelings. All the stuff that's been going on, watching this, time's taking its toll, it's passing us by. Stop fucking wasting it on the agenda and get on with your life. So that's the end of the presentation. If you want to ask questions about any more of the solutions that have helped therapy-wise or whatever, you're welcome to do so.